Most diesel problems do not start with broken parts. They start with confused computers, limp mode, rough idle, bad fuel economy, random warning lights. The engine feels wrong, but nothing is actually broken yet. That is why shops make so much money. Today, I am revealing a free diesel reset that mechanics quietly use to fix about 85% of these issues without replacing a single part. Miss this, and you could waste thousands chasing problems that do not exist. On a cold Tuesday morning in early February, just before sunrise, a diesel pickup was dropped off outside my shop with a note taped to the steering wheel. No appointment, no phone call, just one sentence written in Sharpie. Dealer says it needs thousands in repairs. Please confirm. That sentence alone told me exactly how this story was going to unfold, because I have seen it hundreds of times. A diesel engine that suddenly feels wrong. Warning lights that appear out of nowhere. Limp mode that kills power on the highway. Rough idle that was not there last week. And a repair estimate so high it makes owners consider selling the vehicle instead of fixing it. What makes these situations dangerous isn't the damage, it's the fear. Diesel engines are complicated, intimidating machines. High-pressure fuel systems, turbochargers, emissions components, computers stacked on computers. When something goes wrong, drivers assume the worst, and shops know it. That fear is expensive. The truck in front of me that morning wasn't old, it wasn't abused, it was maintained well enough to still look proud. Yet according to the dealership, it needed a new sensor package, a forced diesel particulate filter service, and further diagnosis if problems persist. Translation: pay now, maybe pay more later. The owner didn't understand why. The truck had no catastrophic noise. No smoke cloud, no mechanical knock. It simply felt weak and angry, like it was holding itself back. That is because it was. Modern diesel engines are not controlled by feel, they are controlled by data. And when that data becomes corrupted, outdated, or confused, the engine does not break. It panics. It protects itself, it pulls power, it limits fuel, it activates limp mode, not because something is physically destroyed, but because the computer believes something is wrong. And here is the part most drivers never get told. In a shocking number of cases, nothing is actually broken. The engine control unit, ECU, is constantly learning. It adapts to fuel quality, it adapts to driving style, it adapts to sensor feedback. Over time, especially after battery replacements, short trips, interrupted regenerations, or sensor glitches, that learned data can become poison. The ECU starts compensating for problems that no longer exist, or worse, compensating for problems that never existed in the first place. So the engine feels worse, fuel economy drops, throttle response dulls, warning lights appear, and the driver is told they need parts. But sometimes all the engine needs is to forget. This is where things get uncomfortable for the repair industry. Because there are reset procedures built into diesel systems that can instantly clear these learned errors. Procedures that cost nothing. Procedures that take minutes. Procedures that do not involve replacing a single part. And procedures that are almost never explained to drivers unless they ask the right questions. That truck did not need a new diesel particulate filter. It did not need a new sensor. It did not need thousands in repairs. It needed a reset. Not the kind you hear about casually. Not unplug the battery for 5 seconds and hope. A proper reset drains learned memory, clears adaptive tables, and forces the engine to relearn from clean data. When done correctly, it can restore power, smooth idle, clear limp mode, and dramatically improve fuel economy. And when done incorrectly, it can make things worse. That is why this knowledge is so carefully guarded. A 5-minute reset replaces hours of diagnostic labor. It replaces expensive, uncertain repairs. It replaces fear with clarity, and clarity does not pay as well as confusion. I have watched diesel owners spend thousands chasing symptoms caused by software confusion. New sensors installed that did not need replacing. DPFs cleaned that were not clogged. Injectors blamed when fuel trims were simply mislearned. All because nobody stopped to ask the simplest question: has the computer been told the truth recently? When I pulled that truck into the bay, I did not grab a parts catalog. I did not quote a repair. I did not even open the hood right away. I connected a scanner and looked at behavior. Fuel trims, boost targets, regeneration counters, everything told the same story. The engine was operating under old assumptions that no longer matched reality. And that is the silent killer in modern diesels. They do not fail loudly at first. They fail politely, they limit themselves, they protect themselves, and they drain your wallet while doing it. Today, I am revealing the exact diesel reset procedures that fix a massive percentage of these problems for free. No special tools, no dealership access, no secret software, just understanding how diesel computers think, what confuses them, and how to safely force them to start fresh. Here is the warning most people never hear. Not all resets are equal. One reset clears the engine memory. One reset clears emissions logic. One reset clears airflow calculations. And one reset, if done wrong, can damage your transmission. That is why you do not guess. Once you understand which reset to use, when to use it, and how to let the engine relearn correctly, you stop being at the mercy of warning lights and repair estimates. And the moment that truck finished relearning, the difference was not subtle. The power came back, the idle settled, the warning light stayed off. The owner never paid the dealer a dime. Now you need to understand why that worked, and which reset saves the most money first. By the time most diesel owners show up at a shop, they are already convinced something expensive is broken. Limp mode can hit out of nowhere. The truck feels gutless. The check engine light flickers on and off like it is playing games. Fuel economy tanks. Throttle response disappears. And the worst part is how inconsistent it all feels. One day it runs fine. The next day it feels like it is towing a house. That inconsistency is what scares people. Because mechanical failures are usually predictable. Software failures are not. Modern diesel engines do not run purely on hardware anymore. They run on decisions. Every second, the engine control unit is making thousands of calculations based on sensor inputs, stored memory, and learned behavior. It is constantly adapting to fuel quality, driving style, exhaust back pressure, turbo response, ambient temperature, and emissions systems. Over time, especially in real-world driving, that adaptive logic can drift away from reality. Short trips, interrupted diesel particulate filter regenerations, dirty sensors that still function but report slow or biased data, battery voltage drops, software updates layered on top of old learned values. All of it stacks quietly in the background. The ECU doesn't know it's getting confused. It thinks it's doing its job, so it compensates. And when compensation reaches a certain threshold, the engine starts protecting itself. That's when limp mode appears. Limp mode isn't a failure, it's a safety decision. The engine sees conflicting data it doesn't trust, so it limits power, boost, and fueling to prevent damage. Dealers love to frame this as a hardware problem because hardware pays the bills. But in a shocking number of cases, the engine isn't broken at all. It's stuck running on bad assumptions. This is why resets work. When you reset the ECU properly, you are not erasing the problem. You are erasing the memory of the problem. You are forcing the computer to stop compensating for conditions that may no longer exist. A clogged sensor that was cleaned, a battery that was replaced, a fuel issue that is gone. The ECU doesn't automatically forget those events. It keeps adapting to ghosts unless you tell it to start over. That is why diesel engines are especially vulnerable. They rely heavily on adaptive fueling and boost control. They also produce more soot, more exhaust heat, and more back pressure than gasoline engines. That means more opportunities for the ECU to misinterpret what is happening. A slightly dirty mass airflow sensor does not fail outright. It just reports airflow a little slower than reality. The ECU responds by altering fueling. Power drops, smoke increases, fuel economy falls. No code appears because technically nothing is broken. The same thing happens with diesel particulate filter systems. Diesel particulate filters do not clog suddenly. They load gradually. The ECU tracks soot load using models and sensors. If regeneration cycles are interrupted repeatedly, for example, short trips, stop and go driving, or cold weather, the ECU starts stacking failed regeneration data. Eventually, it decides the filter is overloaded, even if it is not physically blocked yet. Power gets limited. Warnings appear. Shops jump straight to replacement quotes. But a proper reset combined with a correct regeneration drive can clear months of bad assumptions in under an hour. This is the part most owners never hear. The engine control unit is not a judge. It is a calculator. It does exactly what it is told to do based on the data it trusts. If the data is wrong or outdated, the decisions will be wrong, even if the engine itself is healthy. That is why a reset often feels like magic. Drivers come back stunned. The throttle feels sharper. Turbo response returns. Shifts smooth out. The engine sounds calmer. Fuel economy improves. They can hardly believe nothing was replaced. But nothing mechanical changed. The engine was always capable of running that way. It was just being held back by its own memory. This is also why resets are misunderstood and sometimes dangerous when done carelessly. Clearing adaptive memory forces the engine to relearn from scratch. If there is a real mechanical problem, such as low fuel pressure, failing injectors, or damaged turbo hardware, a reset can temporarily mask symptoms. That is why professionals know when to reset and when not to. The reset is not a repair. It is a diagnostic weapon. If the problem disappears after a reset and stays gone, you were dealing with software drift. If it comes back quickly, you have just isolated a real fault without wasting money. Either way, you have gained clarity instead of guessing. And here is the uncomfortable truth. Many shops do not like clarity. A 5-minute reset that fixes drivability does not justify hours of labor or expensive parts. It does not sell sensors. It does not sell DPF replacements. It does not sell transmissions. So it is quietly skipped or framed as temporary, even when it solves the issue completely. By the end of this act, you should be asking yourself one question. If so many diesel problems are caused by corrupted memory and confused software, how many owners are replacing parts they never needed? And more importantly, how do you apply these resets correctly, safely, and in the right order so you do not create new problems? That is where things get really interesting. By the time most diesel owners reach this point, they already sense something isn't right. The truck still runs, it still starts, it still pulls, but it feels heavier than it should. Throttle response is dull. Fuel economy is quietly worse. The transmission hesitates just long enough to make you doubt it. And nothing on the dash explains why. This is the stage where people either accept decline as normal diesel behavior, or they accidentally fix everything by resetting the one thing nobody thinks about. Here is the uncomfortable truth. Modern diesel engines do not fail the way old mechanical diesels did. They do not gradually lose power because parts wear evenly. They fail because computers adapt themselves into bad habits. And once those habits are learned, the engine will protect itself at your expense forever unless you force it to forget. By now, you understand that diesel engine control units, transmission modules, turbo controllers, and emission systems are constantly learning. They adjust for fuel quality, they adjust for driving style, they adjust for sensor drift, they adjust for short trips, they adjust for clogged filters, they adjust for problems that no longer exist, and every one of those adjustments costs efficiency. The engine does not feel broken because the computer is working overtime to hide the problem. That is why resets are so powerful. Not because they fix hardware, but because they remove years of defensive behavior the engine has layered on top of itself. After a proper reset, something subtle but important happens. The engine feels honest again. Throttle response returns because the engine control unit is no longer limiting fuel and boost based on outdated assumptions. The turbo spools more cleanly because boost targets are no longer being capped by old error margins. The transmission shifts smoother because pressure tables are no longer compensating for issues that were fixed months ago. Even idle quality improves because the computer stops overcorrecting air and fuel. Most drivers describe it the same way. It feels lighter, not faster, not louder, just less resistant. That sensation is the absence of compensation. This is also where many people make their biggest mistake. They do the reset, feel the improvement, and then immediately go back to driving the same way that confused the system in the first place. Short trips, cold starts with heavy throttle, lugging the engine at low revolutions per minute, cheap fuel, skipped maintenance. Within weeks, the engine control unit relearns bad data and the problem quietly returns. That is why mechanics rarely talk about resets. A reset without behavior change is temporary. A reset paired with correct habits is transformative. After resetting, the first 100 to 300 kilometers matter more than most people realize. This is when the engine control unit rebuilds its baseline. Gentle acceleration. Consistent revolutions per minute. Avoid full throttle pulls. Let the transmission shift under light load. Allow full warm-up cycles. Drive at steady highway speeds when possible. This teaches the system what healthy looks like again. The same applies to diesels with diesel particulate filters. After a reset or regeneration, the engine needs conditions that allow passive regeneration to occur naturally. That means longer drives, sustained exhaust temperature. Do not shut the engine off mid-cycle. When drivers ignore this, the diesel particulate filter clogs again, and they blame the filter instead of the habits. One of the most overlooked benefits of resets is what they reveal. When adaptive layers are removed, real problems can no longer hide. A weak injector becomes obvious. A failing glow plug finally shows itself. A cracked boost hose stops being masked by overfueling. This is not a failure of the reset, it is proof the reset worked. Clean data exposes reality. This is why experienced diesel technicians reset before diagnosing. They want to see how the engine behaves without the noise of old compensation. Unfortunately, most drivers never get this step. They jump straight to parts replacement while the computer is still lying to itself. Another reason mechanics quietly hate resets is economics. A reset costs nothing. No parts, no labor hours, no diagnostic upsell, no warranty claim. It removes uncertainty instead of monetizing it. And when drivers learn they can do it themselves, the power dynamic changes. But resets are not magic. They will not fix broken injectors. They will not repair cracked pistons. They will not save a transmission with burned clutches. What they will do is prevent minor issues from snowballing into major failures. They stop the slow drift that kills efficiency and shortens engine life. Think of resets as maintenance for the brain, not the body. The final piece most drivers never hear is this. Diesel engines do not age badly because they are fragile. They age badly because modern control systems are incredibly sensitive. Give them bad information long enough and they will protect the engine by sacrificing fuel, power, and drivability. They will never tell you they are doing it. They will just keep compensating. That is why two identical diesel trucks with the same mileage can feel completely different. One feels tired and expensive, the other feels sharp and dependable. The difference is not luck. It is whether the computer has been allowed to carry years of bad data. If your diesel feels off but nothing is obviously broken, resetting is not a gamble. It is a baseline. It is how you separate software confusion from mechanical failure. It is how you stop paying for problems that do not actually exist. And once you experience how a diesel feels with clean data again, you will recognize the warning signs immediately when it starts drifting. Poor fuel economy without symptoms, sluggish throttle with no codes, harsh shifts after battery work, limp mode that disappears and returns randomly. Those are not mysteries. They are memories that need to be erased. Most drivers never learn this. They keep replacing parts while the computer keeps lying. Now you know better. If this reset saved you money or helped your diesel feel right again, subscribe. The next video breaks down a single diesel habit that quietly destroys injectors while convincing drivers everything is fine.